Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, episode 17 for the 5th of Teves in a leap year. And so today we begin chapter 6 of Likutei Amarim. And so just to recap, we've been talking a lot about the different makeup of the soul. You know, we talked about that every Jew has two souls. There's a godly soul, there's an animal soul. We talked about how the godly soul is made up of 10 different parts. There's the intellectual aspect of the godly soul, and then there's which is made up of 3. And then there's the emotional part of the godly soul, which is made up of 7. And we also talked about the garments of the godly soul, namely thought, speech, and action, or the 3 garments of the godly soul. So today we are looking at the other soul. So the Alter Rebbe starts off this section, and he talks about how basically God created a counterpart for everything we've been talking about. So just like the godly soul is made up of 10 spheres, we talked about, or 10 energies, however you want to call them, which get enclosed within 3 garments that are 3 holy garments that allow it to perform its will on earth. So too is the other soul that we have, the animal soul, or here it's called the soul of the Sitra Achra and the Klipas Noga, which again, if you remember, that is the source of the animal soul. You can go back a few episodes to learn more about that. This is the soul, once again, that is found within the blood of the human body. So this soul too is made up of 10 parts. And the Alter Rebbe uses an Aramaic term to refer to these 10 parts here, which is, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's Kitrin de Misavuta, which is the Crowns of Unholiness. So they are called 10 Crowns of Unholiness. And just like we said, you know, just like the 10 crowns or the 10 energies that are found in the godly soul are divided up into 7 and 3, so too here, same thing. So he starts off and he mentions the 7 emotive attributes first. And he says that these 7 emotive attributes come from the 4 negative elements, which we actually talked about previously. So if you can go back a few episodes, you can see how we talked about all negative character traits are found within this animal soul and come from these 4 elements. And then he says that there's also, just like in the godly soul, in this animal soul, we also have a mind in the animal soul that is made up of 3 parts. And these 3 parts are also the Chochmah, Bina, and Das, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, to give a superficial translation of these terms. And he says that so too, just like in the godly soul sense where we talked about how the mind gives birth to emotions, so too here in the animal soul, the source of the emotions comes from the mind. And that the emotions that a person has in this animalistic part of them is really in line with their mind. So this is in a very practical way, the Alter Rebbe says. You can see this with a young child who has not a very sophisticated mind. Their values and what they'll want are going to be things that are very not so sophisticated. So if you think about, for example, let's say if you took like a 2-year-old toddler and you put a $100 bill in front of them, and then you also put a piece of chocolate cake, like really yummy chocolate cake, which one do you think he'd go for? So he most likely would go for the chocolate cake, versus if he was a little bit older and had a little bit of a higher understanding, he would understand that this $100 could buy lots of that chocolate cake. It's a really simple example, but this can be translated in a lot of different ways. How basically the more sophisticated a person's mind is, the more complex and sophisticated their emotions would be. And somebody who's of less sophistication, even you can see this, the Alter Rebbe says, in terms of like how irritated they'll get. So somebody who is not necessarily a very sophisticated person who doesn't have a very developed mind, let's say, is going to be annoyed by all kinds of little things and will get excited about really stupid, superficial kind of things. And so these are basically the way in which these powers are manifest within the animal soul. And so now the Alter Rebbe says that just like the animal soul, like the godly soul has these 10 soul powers, it also has clothing. So just like the garments of the godly soul, thought, speech, and action allow the godly soul to perform the commandments of God, so too do the garments of the animal soul allow it to do all kinds of things that it really shouldn't be doing, and are impure garments, basically, is what he calls them. And the Alter Rebbe cites the Zohar here, where he says that all of these acts, these impure acts, whether they're done with the thought of the animal soul, the thought of the animal soul, or, thinking things that are impure, whether they're done in speech, if a person speaks in a way that isn't the holiest way, or whether they're done in action itself, doing actions that are not in line with that which is holy. So all of these things, the Zohar calls them, as cited by the Alter Rebbe, Teviru derucha, which literally means the ruinations of the spirit. So that's today's Tanya. So just to recap, again, we're talking about here how just like the godly soul is made up of 10 parts that's subdivided into 3 and 7, so too is the animal soul, similarly divided as such. And just as the godly soul vests itself in 3 garments of thought, speech, and action in order to do what it needs to do here in this world, namely to fulfill and perform the will of God, so too do the 10 aspects of the animal soul vest themselves in 3 garments that are the counterpart of those holy garments, thought, speech, and action, which make them do all the negative things that it does in the world. And so I will speak to you tomorrow when we will continue with this chapter.
Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.